revitalization.
Hey everyone, welcome to today's episode. It is January 28th, 2026. It's Wednesday. Happy Wednesday. So today we have a couple top stories here. Well, we have a lot of things going on now, which is important to talk about. But what folks really need to understand is that this conspiracy, if you're a conspiracy theorist, the grand conspiracy is beginning to show through the facade of daily American life. And it is manifested itself as a leftist revolution. It's a color revolution against the authority of the state. And not only that, it's in an effort to undermine constitutional liberties here in the United States. And I'm going to get into all that and put it all together for you right now as we get into the news for today, January 28th. As I said recently, I wanted to bring back word of the day. In the word of the day, it's actually an idiom, is in league. You are in league with somebody, and we're going to demonstrate who's in league with who. And Merriam-Webster has the definition, working with someone especially to do something dishonest. And then Cambridge Dictionary has a definition of this idiom, be in league with someone. To be secretly working or planning something with someone, usually to do something bad. And that's exactly what we're going to be talking about today. And as I noted earlier, the thing that's the thing that is bad, that they're doing something bad, is what is it? It is undermining the United States. And what we know of the United States is a free country, and this freedom is illustrated through the Constitution. It gives you individual liberties, individual per person, and that makes you free. Free to do as thou wilt, I guess you could say. I don't really look at it that way, but it's individual liberties, and they need to take these liberties away, your freedom of speech, your freedom, your right to bear arms, etc., so that they can come in with their social credit score, their CBDCs, and rule your life. If you think you're enslaved now financially, I mean, you're in indentured servitude if you hold any debt, and most people do, you're a slave. So let's move on into the headlines today. We're going to start out with The Independent. Alex Preddy had a confrontation with ICE officers and suffered a broken rib a week before his deadly shooting. Now, I wanted to get into something here, and I think I might have misplaced the entire article, but I have to double check here. So this bolsters my theory that Alex Preddy was targeted by ICE agents who looked unfamiliar as far as what I was used to seeing on the television. And I'm just looking for this article here, so you're going to have to bear with me. Nah, I think it might have been lost in the mix. But I'm going to get into the theory anyway, which is that Alex Preddy was targeted. Let's get into the story. A week before his death, Preddy, 37, had broken a rib when a group of federal officers tackled him as he was protesting their detention of other people. Now, this is the Independent, so take a close look here at that first paragraph. The detentions of other people. He was protesting the detention of other people. What other people? Other protesters? Illegal immigrants? It doesn't say. It's not really good reporting from the Independent, and they want to make it specifically ambiguous. Since the launching of President Donald Trump's immigration crackdown in Minneapolis last month, federal officers have been collecting information about protesters and agitators in the city. Capture all image, license plates, identifications, and general information on hotels, agitators, protesters, etc. So we can capture it all in one consolidated form. Now, this is what I'm getting at here. And I think it also applies to Renee Good. These people are being targeted in a specific way. Repeat agitators were being targeted, let's just say, with enhanced enforcement, which means if they make it sound, the media makes it sound like these people just wandered onto the scene and then were dealt with forcefully by ICE. That's not what happens. These people encounter these agitators, protesters, obstructors, time and time again over days sometimes, and through facial recognition and the systems that the feds have at their disposal, can easily spot folks. Now, the question, the repeat offenders, let's say, did they know Alex Preddy would have a gun? When he was tackled a week before, did they know he was armed? Or did he decide to be armed after being tackled by police? Now, let's just make it perfectly clear. Just because you're tackled by police doesn't give you a right to arm yourself. You're going to what? Fend them off. Some people think that if you carry a firearm, you could use it to fend off people. That's not what firearms are for. Firearms are for killing. So if you pull that weapon, you better want to kill somebody. You're not going to shoot them in the leg or fend them off, because if you pull that gun, doesn't even matter if it's police or anyone. If you pull a gun on somebody, you better be prepared to kill them or be killed yourself. Because if somebody pulled a gun on me, I would kill them because he's threatening my life. You don't have to say, hey, I'm going to shoot you or anything like that. So why did he carry a gun? The thing is, if they knew he carried a gun, that was the point of the aggressive tactics that we saw in that video. And we understand it's the same thing with Renee Good. They had been pestering, obstructing, and dangerously driving their car close to federal agents. And so there was an escalation in enforcement as far as they were concerned. And with Preddy, if they knew he had a gun on him, maybe that would warrant him getting killed. Maybe they targeted him to kill him. Maybe somebody set these guys out there specifically as a death squad to kill him, to raise tensions, to cause the catalyst that we're seeing today, to create another martyr. Because the thing with Renee Good, I think, was not targeted, was sort of accidental. But as a catalyst, it worked so well that they wanted to create another catalyst, and they sent out in these ICE goons to specifically target and shoot him. I don't know. That's just kind of a theory, but there were a lot of things that didn't add up for me. Why, when the officer, the agent in the gray jacket, when he removed the weapon, why did he run away? Now you could say reasonably he ran away because he wanted to put that gun into evidence. But then when he ran away and he started ducking as the shots were fired. So that has to be explained to me. Why didn't he just take the weapon and stand there? He ran away like he knew something was going to happen. And I'm not trying to pick apart ICE. As far as I'm concerned, they're doing legitimate law enforcement. And to get it in the way of legitimate law enforcement, especially if you're armed with a vehicle or whatever, doesn't end well. All right, let's get into other headlines here. Deadline: Zuckerberg puts ICE info on ICE. Instagram, Facebook, and Threads block links about agents as backlash grows over Alex Preddy killing. And what they're basically talking about here is Zuckerberg, well, his platforms, the meta platforms, Facebook, are not letting leftist docs ICE agents, which should be a federal crime to expose, identify, put home addresses of ICE or any law enforcement, really, because law enforcement, you have to understand, is an extension of the state. Now, when I say state, I mean government. So the municipality, the state, or the federal government. It's the power of the state. It's the enforcement arm of the state. So if you're doxing politicians, law enforcement, members of the state that presumably you elect in a democracy to form a government, social contract that you have with the government to represent your will, or at least the will of the majority, et cetera, et cetera. Let's hope that that's the case. All right, moving on. New York Post. Stephen Miller admits border agents who killed Alex Preddy may have not been following protocol. This is a backstep here. He's walking this back. White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller sheepishly admitted Tuesday that I don't know, sheepishly. I don't know what's going on with the New York Post lately. The border agents may not have been following proper protocol when they shot and killed ICU nurse Alex Preddy, who Miller previously described as an assassin and a domestic terrorist. Maybe so. My thing is, he was armed, and when he got in contact with the police, when they tried to detain him, put him under arrest, he didn't let him know that he had a gun. Or you certainly can't hear it. And the point is, if you're going to go and put yourself in a position where you're going to tussle with police, being armed is not a good thing to do. That's not why were you bringing a gun? Like, if you're going to conceal carry, you're going to conceal carry if you're going to have to walk through a bad neighborhood at night following an event or trying to get to your car or something. Some people, everyday carry. I mean, and that's fine too. But if he's everyday carrying the specific intent to confront law enforcement, very bad idea. Very bad idea. Even in states that open carry. Like, you're not going to open carry. I mean, they did it at the Bundy Ranch. I don't want to digress anymore. Let's get back to the story. The White House provided clear guidance to the Department of Homeland Security that extra personnel had been sent to Minnesota for force protection should be used for conducting fugitive operations to create a physical barrier between the arrest teams and the disruptors, Miller told the Post in a statement. We're evaluating why the Customs and Border Protection team may not have been following protocol. So they weren't even ICE. They were CBP. And there's just something about that team that doesn't sit right with me. My intuitive sense says there's something up there. But the point is that those people shouldn't have been there. And when they were asked to disperse, and after sprayed in the face with mace or pepper spray, just go home and wash your face. But they don't. They're dedicated to their mission, and you can't beat the state. Maybe in court, but not on the street, because there are more of them than of you. I mean, are there more people protesting? Yes. But like I said previously before, the law enforcement has the state sanction to use violence against you. And you don't have that same right against them. It's just the law. So why would you go out when you're already, you're already going up against the law? The law is on their side. Is it unfair? Maybe you could argue that, whatever. New York Post, at least 60 anti-ICE protesters arrested for trespassing at New York City Hilton Hotel after refusing to leave the lobby. Good. I think all these protesters that trespass, use violence, obviously, when an assembly is called illegal, you should just disperse. If they use dispersal agents with like tear gas, you don't pick up the canisters and throw them back at police. That's not protesting. That's certainly not lawful protesting. Post-millennial. Frey says Minneapolis won't comply with federal immigration law after Homan meeting. I also made it clear that Minneapolis does not and will not enforce federal immigration laws and that it will remain focused on keeping our neighbors and streets safe. This is the memo shit. Neighbors, keeping our neighbors safe, and then calling them immigrants or migrants when there's a distinction, legally, of course, between illegal immigrants and legal immigrants. And so to conflate that or make the term immigrant sort of ambiguous, we don't know who we're talking about. And your neighbors will be safe as they're taken into custody. This is same with the left, with the velvet glove approach to propaganda. Oh, we're just trying to help the children. They're all God's children. They've broken the law, broken immigration law, and in a lot of other cases, broken criminal law. Other laws, felonies, misdemeanors, whatever. And the protesters do as well. So Jacob Fry isn't going to enforce immigration law. Well, we're not asking him to. We're asking him to police the people that are obstructing federal law enforcement. Enforce the law. You don't have to participate in the immigration raids, in the ICE raids. You don't have to do that. But you certainly, if people are obstructing federal officers, you have to control those crowds and or arrest where needed. Like, let's say like in New York, where they trespass into a hotel and you think you could protest, you go on private property, you think you could stay there. I mean, these people are just, I don't care, man, fighting the man. No, you're not. No, you're not. And it's not what you say you're protesting injustice. It's not really injustice. It is actually justice because you're bringing people to justice. That's what law enforcement does. You're actually acting in an unjust manner. What do the patrons of the New York City Hilton or the owners of that hotel, what do they have to do with friggin' ICE? Maybe some ICE are staying there, maybe, but what about all the other residents? What about in Minneapolis, all the other residents that were staying at that hotel and were kept up all night by your antics? Is that just? It's not just. They don't know a thing about justice. They're wound up by a leftist conspiracy that was launched in Davos and the Bilderberg with the help of communist China and other leftist agitators. All right. New York Post again. Trump calls GOP Senators Murkowski, Tillis losers over demands DHS Secretary Kristi Noem resign over Alex Preddy's shooting. Once again, I have to say that the shooting was justified. I don't know what the uproar is. Hey, man, the guy was armed. Is there any dispute that that was his gun? No, there's not. Like I said, shouldn't have resisted arrest. It can become very dangerous when you deal with police. I'm just saying. I know from firsthand experience. And they don't play. They don't play. They don't want to get hurt. They want to go home to their families. And they look at everybody out there who's doing things that are illegitimate. You could debate whether it's illegitimate or not. but activity that they think is illegitimate, they don't look at you in a favorable light. Post-millennial protesters swarm Tim Walz's office, actually in his home too. After he signals willingness to work with Trump, the crowd was heard shouting, "Justice delayed, justice denied," and held signs that included sayings such as "Justice for Alex Preddy," all probably printed by Roy Singham. And we're going to get into that in just a second. It's not justice. You don't know what justice is because you don't know the law, right? You all always talk about democracy. Democracy is how we arrive at legislation. You don't like the law and you think there are more of us than them. Okay, change the law. And see how that works out for you. Why don't you defund the police? Look how that worked out for you. And then you're exposed and vulnerable towards crime. I mean, people just don't know. Maybe it's their naivete. I don't know. Federalist. Inside the alliance between American Marxists and Communist China. What are we talking about here? As the DSA, that's the Democratic Socialists of America, as the DSA translates electoral success into governing power, its documented efforts to build ties with the CCP cannot simply be brushed off. Of course not. This is all fifth generational warfare. People really don't know what they're talking about. Recent investigative report by Newsweek has exposed troubling connections between the Democratic Socialists of America, America's largest socialist organization, and official links to the Chinese Communist Party. These revelations demand serious scrutiny because the DSA has achieved growing political influence in recent years. It was all meant to be here. These records show the DSA International Committee actively pursuing closer relations with the CCP-affiliated entities, often framed as solidarity in a fight against U.S. imperialism. It's all, it's a liberal mind virus. So what that means is, since they were grown up and since they went to college, they thought they're all educated and smart, and the veil has been pulled away from my eyes now that I see that the United States is a terrible country and the imperialism and this and that and the other thing, and opening the door for corporations to XYZ. And a lot of that is true. However, this still is the best house in a bad neighborhood. There surely have been wrongs, but the point is the Constitution, Bill of Rights specifically, but the laws of this country. Now, I don't believe in corporations. I believe charters should be revoked. I don't believe corporations are persons. I don't think giving them individual liberties, as you would give to an individual person, is right, but we're all incorporated and et cetera, and I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. But this is what they're trying to undermine, because corporations are looked at as, through the law, as individuals. This is what I'm getting at here, is the undermining of individual liberties by the left. Why? Because the left is a collective. You as an individual don't matter. And really, you want to go there, and that's where these people want to go. These records show that the DSA International Committee actively pursuing closer relations with the CCP-affiliated entities, often framed as solidarity in the fight against U.S. imperialism. In one striking example from the 2025 meeting of the DSA China Working Group, a New York-based member stated China wants to interface with the DSA if we develop a killer 2-week itinerary, hire locals, and develop further connections with the CCP Communist Party of China, then we're golden. And then it goes on to say other documents included detailed presentations about the at least two trips to China taken by some DSA members in 2023 and 2025. It's undeniable. And you have to know a little something else about Barack Obama and the OSA, and basically about what organizing is, organizing for the left, and even the Occupy movements, which were actually protesting the Obama administration. People don't really get into that. But then the leftists understood how effective those demonstrations were and took some of those tactics and brought them to the OFA training, et cetera, et cetera. All right, now we're going to get to the meat of it. Code Pink ties. Jody Evans, co-founder of Code Pink and a CCP apologist, presented her group's China is not our enemy campaign at one of the DSA meetings. And I just want to stop here and say that Jody Evans is a awful, affluent, white, female, what's the acronym? White, female, urban, liberal. I would say suburban, but that doesn't fit the acronym. So she's your neighbor. She's the housewife that lives next door. She's the female professional. She's the weak link in the armor, which is compassion. She is the culpable, gullible compassionist. She encouraged the DSA to promote a positive view of communist China and the U.S. while deliberately avoiding contentious topics such as China's potential invasion to Taiwan and the documented genocide against the Uyghur Muslims. Evans is married to Neville Roy Singham. Who's that? A U.S.-born tech billionaire and open Marxist currently living in Shanghai, China. Together, they play a pivotal role in influencing both the messaging and financial support of Marxist groups in the U.S., such as the New York City-based People's Forum. No different than Tim Walz. You see, the New World Order, not Trump's New World Order, but the New World Order that is being pushed by the corporate oligarchs, it's corporate fascism, really, but they're pushing socialism, Chinese-style socialism, all over the world that will work under the umbrella of a corporate fascist global technocracy. So the whole point of socialism is to, A, rid you of your individual rights, but then put you under a authoritarian rule so you won't rise up against the machine, so to speak, against AI, which is going to take all your jobs. Not only that, but undermine any human endeavor that you might have. Maybe you like to paint, maybe you're pretty good at it, but AI is going to come along and paint a better picture. Goes on to say, Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas has called on the U.S. Justice Department to launch a federal investigation into Code Pink, accusing it of providing material support for foreign terrorist organizations, really a foreign adversary, and serving as an unregistered agent for the Chinese government. Indeed. Hold on a second. We have a little chime in here from Ronaldus Magnanimous. Specific events leading up to Petty dying at the hands of ICE has now been revealed to have been a very sophisticated and well-coordinated plan of attack against ICE. So he chimed in on Rumble, and he's also sent me something else here. All right, moving along, though. Excuse me. We have new headlines here from Just the News. Chicago Mayor Johnson calls for protests and for local government process to prosecute feds. That are talking about ICE. Civilian Office of Police Accountability to investigate complaints of police officers violating the city's welcoming city ordinance. Not enough to be a welcoming city on paper. We must enforce our local laws. Basically, what he's trying to do is he's using the Civilian Office of Police Accountability, which was created after the 2020 George Floyd bullshit. But that has no jurisdiction over federal officers. That's only over their own police force, which isn't doing very well in Chicago anyway. I mean, they have a lot of crime there. And again, it's this approach to crime. Oh, but these people are indigent or come from tough backgrounds, whatever. It doesn't matter. You break the law, you break the law, right? And like I said, my only wrinkle in there is if speeding, traffic violations do not amount to the same seriousness as breaking other laws. Just my way of looking at things. All right, Fox News. President of largest teachers union, set to speak at political revolution event targeting ICE. Becky Pringle, the president of the National Education Association, had previously been vocal about criticizing the Trump administration and endorsed Kamala Harris in the 2024 election. I mean, we all know that the conspiracy is about getting its tentacles in organizations, putting like-minded people as plants in organizations, then fostering discord in the organization itself, and then eventually taking over the organization as a whole. And then, of course, using that organization then as a propaganda outfit to, sow the minds of the unwitting in a similar fashion. Because the problem is we're social creatures, and women more than men, and they hear things that other people are saying and then they adopt those things. It's peer influence has more effect on females than it does males. And this is an old tactic, of course, is whether or not, undermine the family, the female, the children, and the male will have no other course than to go along with their family if they want to keep, cohesion within the family. I mean, it's an old thing. The communists did it, the Maoists did it, etc. All right, just the news. Bring this country to a halt. Sarsour Singham Network. That's Roy Neville Singham, which we just heard about. Students vow nationwide anti-ICE showdown. This is color revolution stuff. Fifth generational warfare. Collection of far-left groups led by a communist activist network tied to the CCP-linked millionaire Marxist Neville Roy Singham. I said Roy Neville Singham. It's Neville Roy Singham, is attempting to organize a nationwide anti-ICE school and business shutdown, with anti-Israel activist Linda Sarsour declaring that we will bring this country to a halt. It's fucking insurrection. No different. This will be the largest attempt at a color revolution ever. It's not going to work well because America is a large, diverse country, and they're making it sound like, everybody's on board with this. It's really just a small fraction of leftist extremists, but their network works well, and they get people into the street. You think they represent everybody, but they don't. They don't even represent half of the Democrats that voted against Trump. But like I said, it's an advanced military-grade psyop that got people convinced that Donald Trump was, the new Hitler, the worst thing since, Genghis Khan, whatever. Very successful. But his policies don't mimic anything that they're saying at all. They don't want to talk about it, though. Anyway, story goes on to say the planned national shutdown announced early this week includes plans for large-scale marches and a day of no work, no school, no shopping around the country. And who wouldn't want that, right? Who wouldn't want, I don't want to go to work, or I don't want to go to school? Trying to stop people from shopping is a different thing entirely. Whatever. And the problem is, what people don't realize the seriousness is that when Trump's out of office, they're going to come for a purge of populists. They're already talking about hanging MAGA. You don't know how serious this is going to be. The reconciliation that's going to come after Trump, the demagnification they're talking about, it's going to come after Trump. Very fucking serious. And people don't really understand. And then national emergency, it's suspension of rights, suspension of elections. We got to get these crazy conservatives in jail or whatever, re-education camps. We've known this for a long time, and I'm not bloviating rhetoric here. This is really serious. Fox News anti-Trump No Kings protest organizers target Minneapolis St. Paul for next flagship demonstration. The No Kings 3 demonstration planned for March 28th will focus on Minnesota following 2 fatal shootings. Whatever. No kings. Like, Trump is not a king. He's a duly elected president of the United States. Nobody wants to be a king. It's all this false narrative that seeps into people's minds. And if you ask any leftist on the street what the fuck they're talking about, they can't articulate it. A group that organized 2 nationwide No Kings protests last year is planning its next large-scale national demonstration on March 28th with a particular focus on Minnesota, which has emerged as ground zero for immigration enforcement demonstrations over the last few months. The anti-Trump protest is being organized by Indivisible, a liberal grassroots group that said demonstrations are expected across the country that day. Like I said, they're very organized. They make it seem like the whole country is against Trump. It's just not true. It's not true. The people are making a big mistake. These people voted for Biden. What did Biden give you? Fucking nothing. 23% inflation. That's what Biden gave you. The reason you can't afford shit now is because of Joe Biden and his cadre of crazy, deluded leftists who, maybe are smarter, but know what they're fucking doing. To undermine the U.S., to crash the U.S. And now that Trump's in office, they can't let him sit there for another year. They're going to bring in another virus. They're going to crash the dollar. They're going to do whatever they can to stop this guy, just like they did in his first term. Why? Not because of Trump the person, not because of the false narrative they're talking about, but because of his ability to muster populist support for things that are American. Individual liberties, constitutional freedoms, and prosperity. And all his policies in regards to the economy are working. And the reason they're delayed was because of Jerome Powell, and I'm not going to get into that right now. All right, National Review. Like January 6th, Minnesota is a test of American national sovereignty. I don't always agree with National Review, but I agree here. Listen to this. ICE tactics are the pretext. The real issue is whether states can make themselves no-go zones immune from federal law. Fair-minded people can debate many things about immigration enforcement, Donald Trump's immigration policies, and the tactics used by immigration and customs enforcement and other law enforcement agencies. But the debate over what has been happening in Minnesota is not about any of those things. It is about whether federal law is sovereign everywhere in the country. We fought a civil war over this. About slavery. You dumbasses. Whether federal law is sovereign everywhere in the country or it isn't. It is about whether massive resistance by states, cities, and street mobs can nullify federal law or not. It can't. It doesn't. And like I said, law is arrived at democratically. So you don't believe in democracy. You don't. You just believe in subjective nonsense. All right, more to look at here. New York Times. I like this one. The height of close combat weaponry is on this woman's doorstep. In pursuit of illegal immigrants, federal agents are carrying instruments of war, fine-tuned and perfected for killing at short range. The New York Times doesn't know what the fuck they're talking about. I wanted to bring my suppressor over here, but it doesn't matter. They're not talking about anything about close range weaponry, which means like a last ditch weapon or a last ditch knife. That's for close combat. Or your primary knife, whether it's a K-bar or whatever kind of knife you use. That's close, like a pistol also is close range weaponry. They're not talking about that. What are they talking about? Here you go. Here's ICE and their tactical gear. Yes, they have body armor. Yes, they have rifles. Oh, but look at their rifles. Fine-tuned and perfected for close quarters killing. It's not. Rifles are used for actually long distance. The type of equipment is often reserved for SWAT and hostage rescue units. False. It isn't. It's also used by FBI and anybody who makes a targeted raid. Ooh, look, a suppressor. They show a picture. And you can see, I just want to say here that this is modern rifle weaponry. The reason AR-15s are so well liked in the United States is that you can customize them. Barrel length, attachments, suppressed, not suppressed, flashlights, lasers, and not traditional lasers, but, you know, infrared. I mean, people don't really use lasers that much. It's when you have your night goggles on, it's easier to see where you're targeting. In any case, they say suppressors like the ones on the end of these rifles have migrated from soldiers to law enforcement officers to civilians. They have proliferated because of the added safety benefits of reducing brain trauma and hearing damage when shooting indoors. Indeed. That is absolutely correct. But they didn't migrate from soldiers. Special ops, maybe. Most U.S. military personnel don't have suppressors on their rifles. They don't. It's usually reserved for special ops and people that are going into raids and whatever and want to keep the report at a low audible level. They go on to say, modular advanced weapon lasers. But that's not what they're talking about. At least 2 rifles have modernized black rails. Black rails. Ooh. Mounted around their barrels, which allow accessories to attach more easily. Black rails, usually referred to as a handguard, but the rails, yes, are so you can mount attachments. That's all part of the modular system of the AR-15. But they call them M-lock or modular lock for its lighter weight and sturdiness when securing devices like lasers, flashlights, and grips. It is the grip, but I understand what they're saying, front grip. Daniel defense receivers and barrels are used across the U.S. military, as many others. And that's the thing. That's what it is. So they're just describing the modern American rifle. If you look at most soldiers too, they use the traditional M4, but it's not that different from what's going on. Now they move on to dump pouches. Got to have your dump pouches there. To store expended ammunition magazines, okay, or whatever, hand grenades sometimes. And look, a flared magwell. Oh no, a flared magwell, so it's easier for you to change magazines. Yeah, so what? Not one rifle has been discharged in the execution of an operation. Doesn't matter. That's your rifle. But the New York Times goes ballistic over attachments to your AR. A flashlight. Oh, a laser. Oh, no. Or that your upper has a handguard on it. that can attach things. It's just ridiculous. That's the way all modern ARs are constructed for that specific purpose. The old M16 style M4, those are long gone for the most part, the ones with a handle. I mean, there are plenty still out there, but. Federalist, Dems unconstitutional bill would jail law-abiding Virginians for guns they already own. They're going ballistic again. Legal gun owners' Second Amendment rights are under threat in Virginia after the Democrat-controlled government workshopped a bill that would effectively criminalize anyone who possesses a magazine that holds more than 10 rounds. Again, this is the thing I have in my state. Got to just carry more magazines. I think it's ridiculous. But whatever. I don't know if you could even stop that bill. But that's why they have to have these mass shootings, is to slowly restrict their Second Amendment rights. In a just country, in a moral country, in a sane country, right, we wouldn't have to limit firearm magazines, attachments, whatever. Because the majority of people that legally own firearms don't go out and shoot up schools. And we still don't have a reason why these kids do this. Do we? But it does benefit the left. More from Virginia and from the Federalist. Judge, Virginia Democrats gerrymandering ploy is illegal and voided. Thus, the action of the General Assembly during its regular session 2026 cannot meet the second passage required of Article 7, Section 1 of the Virginia Constitution. What does this mean? It means a Virginia judge has shot down efforts by the state's Democrats to gerrymander the Commonwealth into their party's favor ahead of the 2026 midterm elections. Why? In the Tuesday decision, Tazewell County Circuit Judge Jack Hurley ruled that the Democrat lawmakers unlawfully rushed a constitutional amendment proposal that would allow them to redraw the state's congressional map through General Assembly. They never stop cheating. They never stop cheating. And how is it lawful? And basically, they said it isn't lawful because the Democrats are doing the same things they always did, is redraw districts by adding on swaths of black communities who traditionally vote Democrat. That's what they've been doing that for years. And then when the Republicans try to redraw it, they go, oh, that's racist. You can't have draw a little friggin' finger down out of a district to incorporate some urban piece of lower income POC district. Some good news, just the news. Population growth in U.S. slowed down after Trump border policies were enacted. Population grew by 1.8 million or 0.5, the slowest growth in the country since COVID-19 pandemic. The significant slowdown follows 2024's high of 3.2 million people added to the country, and that was all part of illegal immigration. Some say added about 12 million people. And like I said, even at the clip that the ICE pace is at, the enforcement deportation operation is at, we'll only get out about 8 million. We're not going to get out all 10 to 12 million. Fox News, Trump launches midterm push in Iowa, warns losses could derail agenda. We got to win. President launches 2026 campaign push in Iowa, saying GOP losses would jeopardize tax cuts and border policies. Not only that, but they plan a big cheat. And so we have to be very concerned about what they're planning. They're already planning, were planning, had in the works after the loss in November 2024. They've been planning this. How are we going to win? Not how are we going to get elected, how are we going to win? And that includes cheating. That's why they're going through all the voter rolls to try to at least reduce the people that aren't supposed to be there and significantly reduce the amount of mail-out ballots, which is cheating. No need to get into that any further. Again, from Ronaldus Magnanimous, chiming in on Rumble, with all the fundamental, With all the undermanned cops in Minneapolis doing crowd control, how come we haven't heard about all the daily crime in that town lately? Thank you, Ronaldus Magnanimous, for that comment. That's a good point. Going back to the next headline from the Washington Post, which is in trouble. White biologist sues Cornell, alleging illegal race-based hiring. It indeed exists. An evolutionary biologist filed a lawsuit against Cornell University this week. Alleges an Ivy League school used unlawful race-based hiring practice and intentionally discriminated against qualified candidates by refusing to consider white people. And then they have, if you look here, they have white in capital W. Well, that's not part of the AP style book, but it should be, I guess. If you capitalize black for black people. I think the writer was just confused here. This is happening all over. Believe you me, I am no opponent of hiring diverse hiring. If someone is qualified, because that shouldn't be the decision shouldn't be based on immutable characteristics, it should be based on merit. But let's say you have three people, they're all their backgrounds and education is all basically the same, and one of those people might be black, and you said, well, you know, this department that we're hiring for is kind of white. It would be nice to hire a black person, to have a black person in there, as long as they're qualified equally with other candidates. I don't have a problem with that. I like diverse. I like multiculti. I was multiculti before it even became a thing. I certainly don't have a problem with it. My problem is hiring people that don't meet muster based on merit and are just hired as a token. I mean, that's pretty demeaning even for the people hired. But this practice is going on. It is reverse racism, so I certainly don't have a problem. I have a problem with that, but the suit has to be justified, et cetera, et cetera. All right, enough of that. The Guardian, no one knows anything. Washington Post staffers fear major cuts. Members of foreign staff sent letter to billionaire owner Jeff Bezos urging him to change course. It's not going to happen. First of all, the Washington Post is only floated so it can serve propaganda purposes for the CIA. But the problem is, how long are you gonna bolster a hemorrhaging news or entertainment program? Because Stephen Colbert is costing that network $100 million a year. Washington Post is losing $100 million a year. How is that sustainable? It's not sustainable. Unless the purpose is propaganda, which it is doing. The Daily Beast. Now let's go to CBS. The Daily Beast. MAGA curious CBS boss dares defiant staffers to quit intense all-hands meeting. CBS News editor-in-chief Barry Weiss told the staff to leave the company if they were unwilling to move forward under the vision she has under her vision as she continues to make the network more Trump-friendly. It's not Trump-friendly. It's called objective. Let me start by saying, Barry Weiss said, I get it. I also get why, in the face of all this tumult, you might feel uncertain or skeptical about me or what I'm aiming to do here. I'm not going to stand up here today and ask you for trust. I'm going to earn it, just like we have to do with our viewers. What I can give you is what I've always tried to give my readers as a journalist: transparency, clarity, and straight talk. How about objectivity? You can be transparent you want. The problem is the people that were previously hired were hired specifically because of their leftist views, which is wrong. You don't want bias in journalism. Goes on to say, if that's not your bag, that's okay. It's a free country, and I completely respect you if you decide this is just not the right place at the right time for you. Bye-bye. It also goes on to say, we are not producing a product enough people want. because nobody wants propaganda. And people have become so astute at spotting it, they get tired of it. Unless it's feeding the leftist need to reaffirm their beliefs. Well, I said the network would be for the center. We're for the center right, we're for the center left. And that's the vast majority of the company. That's who we need to reach. I agree. It's just people don't know what the truth is and they don't care, right? Associated Press, but what is succeeding, California Post brings brash New York style tabloid news to the West Coast. I like ye. That's what California needs. Like I said, people are in their bubble. They don't really know what's going on. You can be compassionate. I have no problems with being compassionate, but you also have to have a monicum of objectivity. You know, don't think your feelings. You know, if you feel like you say you feel for these people, whatever it is, illegal immigrants, whatever, I get it. I feel for poor people. Of course I do. I'm very empathetic. But it doesn't coalesce with the reality. And of course, as leftists always do, they don't consider the unforeseen consequences of their actions. And then they could easily disavow it. That had nothing to do with what we were doing, right? Trump moves to accelerate 2025 LA wildfire recovery through federal action addressing state and local failures. This is from One American News. There's nothing to say here. I'll just get to the story. Following ongoing criticism of California's slow pace in rebuilding Los Angeles after the devastating 2025 Pacific Palisades and Eaton Canyon wildfires, President Donald Trump has issued a second executive order designed to fast-track reconstruction. Escalating a bitter year-long feud over disaster recovery, you might have remembered the press conference Trump had with Mayor Karen Bass, and he said, people aren't given the ability to rebuild. Oh, yes, we're on it. We're getting permits out all the time. Trump signed a sweeping executive order titled Addressing State and Local Failures to Rebuild Los Angeles After Wildfire Disasters, which seeks to bypass California regulatory red tape to speeding rebuilding in Los Angeles neighborhoods with a focus on recovery in the Pacific Palisades, and Eaton Canyon areas. 1 year after the blazes destroyed 16,000 structures and killed 31 people, the White House reported that fewer than 10 homes have been fully rebuilt. I heard it was about a dozen, but still, that's nowhere near 1,000, which is nowhere near 16,000. And it's done on purpose. We knew this was going to happen after the fire because we proposed the idea that it was set intentionally to burn down Los Angeles, to make Los Angeles and specifically those expensive areas into a 15-minute city in preparation for the Olympics that will be hosted there. A statistic the president blames squarely on state and local obstruction. Central to the administration's grievances, the duplicative and obstructive permitting regulations have stalled recovery efforts indeed. I mean, you can't now. Now I've always been able to see through all this shit, but now it's like almost amusing that they keep trying to say, like in Davos or around the LA wildfires or in Maui or whatever they try to do, or even regards to ICE. It's so transparent that you could see what they're angling at. In regards to the ICE things, it's angling toward a color revolution. In Los Angeles, it's angling towards a 15-minute city. And in Davos, it's angling to resurrect their New World Order agenda, which is to enslave mankind for their eventual removal. And I mean kill everybody, because they're not going to be needed. But first, you have to imprison them in their house, their whereabouts, etc. You can't have free people running around because they'll expose what you're trying to do. Can't have free speech. Certainly can't have weapons. New York Post again, Americans will see an average of $1,000 boost to their tax refunds thanks to Trump's one big beautiful bill. People are going to see, hopefully people notice at tax time the benefits of the Trump administration. And I would imagine a month before the midterms, you're going to see tariff dividends checks sent to the American people. You get a $2,000 check in the mail, probably signed by Donald Trump. That's going to change your attitude. Story goes on to say Americans can expect an average $1,000 boost for their tax refunds this year, with the White House projecting an additional $100 billion to be returned to filers during the 2026 tax season, all thanks to President Trump's signature second-term legislation. The filing season, which officially opened Tuesday, is expected to deliver $429 billion in refunds, up from $329 billion last year, according to the Treasury Department projections. With average refunds rising about $1,000 per filer, the typical payout is projected to exceed $4,000. Hooray. You get to keep your own money. It's a novel idea. You think the Democrats would do that for you? Of course not. They want to take your money and kill you, really, but I'm not going to go. I don't want to go down that conspiracy hole, rabbit hole again, but it's there. Certainly want to kill Trump. Post-millennial. Breaking. Democrat Ohio Attorney General candidate pledges to kill Donald Trump by securing a conviction leading to capital punishment. Hi, this is Elliot Forehand, candidate for Ohio Attorney General. I want to tell you what I mean when I say that I'm going to kill Donald Trump. Hey, remember that librarian in West Virginia just got arrested? This guy should be put in jail. I mean, it's the same thing. It's Trump derangement syndrome. Why would you want to kill anybody? That is a weighty decision to make by a jury and judge, whether you're going to assign capital punishment based on the crime. Not on because you don't like somebody, based on the crime. Did Trump murder many people? No. New York Post, Representative Ilhan Omar sprayed with unknown substance and syringe by ranting audience member at chaotic town hall. I was going to have this video, actually. I was going to play it because what was interesting about the video is that when he went at her, she went at him, which even makes me think that she's more of a CIA asset agent. Previously, you're going to approach a man that's bigger than you, who is obviously angry with you, coming at you. Realistically, she started to approach him, but, you know, he was quickly put under restraint by her security. Representative Ilhan Omar was accosted and sprayed by an unknown substance Tuesday by a man who rushed the stage with a syringe at a chaotic town hall event in Minnesota. She was there criticizing the Department of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, and calling for the abolition of ICE when Anthony Kazmierzak shouted inaudible remarks allegedly charged her from the row closest to her lectern and sprayed liquid in the direction of her chest. And apparently he had signaled he was going to do something crazy. And especially, why would you shout something inaudible Why wouldn't you, before you even got up, why don't you shout something from where you were seated? Like, people don't want to debate. Just say, hey, you suck, or you're wrong, or go back to Somalia or something. And what exactly was in the syringe? What was it? Poop water? Oh, you got her. You got some poop water on her. Good for you. Friggin' juvenile, man. I don't know. New York Post St. John student group blocks Turning Point USA from opening chapter after Charlie Kirk assassination. St. John's University student government blocked a bid by the late Charlie Kirk conservative Turning Point USA group from opening a chapter on campus shortly after his assassination last fall. The student government of SJU, one of the largest Catholic universities in the country, denied the application to open a Turning Point chapter months after Kirk was shot dead by a sniper on September 10th. The student government has sole authority to approve or deny new organizations. A university spokesman told the Post on Tuesday clubs or organizations looking to open or revitalize chapters on campus have to pass a 4-round power to organize process. You know, my problem with this is, like, I bet you if you look at the other groups that were allowed to organize there, that they were predominantly leftist. I don't know what the danger is of Turning Point. Therefore, specifically open debate, which you see time and time again, nobody wants to hear because that's a tactic of the left. They even train you for that in OFA. Do not engage in debate because you'll lose. That's strong arm tactics, is bulldozing. New York Post, homeowner shoots teen burglary suspect at luxury LA home. Good. Los Angeles homeowner opened fire on a pair of burglars as they were trying to break into his resident into the resident's $2.4 million home overnight, leaving a 16-year-old suspect injured. Good. Fuck around and find out. Next up, Amazon. So it's not just the Washington Post. Amazon cuts 16,000 corporate jobs in the latest round of layoffs. What do you think this is all about? It's obviously all about AI. Because the takeover is a technological takeover with a socialist control arm, Maoist control arm underneath it. So it's like the corporate oligarchy will be managing the technocracy, and then the communists will be the lower level of state bureaucrats keeping everybody under control using the CBDC, the social credit score, and violence and re-education. PJ Media, Beijing accused of hacking mobile phones of top aides at Downing Street for years. We have learned that Beijing has been hacking mobile devices belonging to the closest advisors of 3 successive British prime ministers over 4 years. Doesn't that sound like maybe a driver for Dianne Feinstein, or maybe a lover of Eric Swalwell, or aides to New York Governor Cuomo or Hochul? I mean, it's just the Chinese communist infiltration is immense. Chinese operatives compromised several senior members of the government working at 10 Downing Street during the Boris Johnson, Liz Truss, and Rishi Sunak governments from 2021 to 2024. And one of the worst British intelligence failures in decades. Was it a failure? Was classified information on Hillary Clinton's server, was that a security failure? Was it done on purpose? It was done on purpose. You open the back door and you allow in the adversaries. Chinese state-sponsored hackers weaponized the United Kingdom's wiretap infrastructure to expose the private communications of their own officials. The breach at Downing Street is part of a larger global espionage operation by Beijing targeting the members of the Five Eyes intelligence network. Yeah, big surprise. People are so dumb. And there's more. How long are we going here? This has been long. Yeah, an hour and 10 minutes already. Got to keep going, though. Just the news. Mexican President Sheinbaum says government suspended oil shipments to Cuba. Sovereign decision not made under the pressure of the U.S. I don't believe that. Reuters, U.S. intelligence raises doubts about Venezuela's leaders to cooperation. U.S. intelligence raises doubts about Venezuela leaders' cooperation. First, they say she's cooperating, then they say she doesn't. And then Washington Times, Rubio is set to warn of future military action if Venezuela's new leaders stray from U.S. goals. So there we go. It's an hour 10. Thanks for joining me today. Don't forget to engage the channel, like, subscribe, leave a comment, share the podcast. We were about 40 headlines we got through today, so appreciate you. Thanks for joining me today. Don't forget you're under attack psychologically, biologically. Say hip to that trick, especially if you're a person on the left and you're hearing me for the first time. You're being targeted. Your compassion is being targeted for infiltration of your mind to let you think that defending the United States, its Constitution, and its way of life is a bad thing. Because the United States is bad. Communist China, good. Mao is good. How many of their own citizens, democide, how many of their own citizens did the Communist Chinese kill? How many Russians were killed by Stalin? How many Ukrainians were killed by Stalin? Hitler wasn't on the right. He was to the right of communism, but he wasn't on the right. National Socialists. Thanks for joining me today. Join me every day, Monday through Friday. Live stream, 10 a.m. or so on Rumble, YouTube, and BitChute. You can also find me on X and other social media, Substack. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you tomorrow. Respect.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message.
The New World Order.
Less than 3% of you people read books.